Almost all the coolest superheroes have some kind of base of operations. Superman has his Fortress of Solitude, the Autobots have the Ark, Iron Man at one point had a massive transforming Arctic bunker, and of course Batman has his Batcave. When my wife and I finally owned our first home 2 years ago, I finally had the opportunity to make my own base. I'd always wanted a home gym that I could combine with a home office. I'd always planned to kit it out with awesome tech and training gear, the plan being to increase my productivity and take my training to the next level. But then reality sunk in and I realised this might not be quite possible, to the extent that I had in mind at least. The room that would become my Batcave, the Biolab, was just big enough to fit a single bed. My budget wasn't endless and we had a whole host of other projects to do on the house. Which is why I had to get practical, do some research and find the best gear and strategies I could use to create something awesome and tailored to my lifestyle. In this video I'll be sharing the best features of my own home Batcave and how I've packed a lot of awesome into a small room. I'll also be looking at some cool examples I've taken inspiration from and the ideas that you guys have sent in. The mission? To design the ultimate realistic home Batcave. A good starting point might be to look at the real, fictional Batcave then and to see what we can take from that. So Batman's space serves not only as somewhere for him to work and solve cases, but also somewhere for him to train. It's a huge monument to his isolation and introverted nature, and I think that's what appeals to a lot of us. I actually love spending time alone, as it's when I can work on my projects, train, research and daydream. I think more people could benefit from more alone time actually, and having a Batcave is highly conducive to that. Of course, this is really important if you run a home business, but even if you don't, a space like this is perfect for working on side projects, for learning new skills, or just for getting some R&R. Okay, so this is the Biolab. Knife on the wall, normal. So as you can see, it's not a massive space, I'd definitely like a bigger one. But let's start in this corner and move our way around. So we've got a whole ton of books, graphic novels, and my uber cool Sonic the Hedgehog games collection. Here I've got my biohacking shelf, a couple of supplements in there, this cool Superman book stand thing, some boxes containing various junk. Down here I have the Oculus Rift for some VR, and I've stuck it on this styrofoam head because I think it looks really awesome even when I'm not training. Got this holographic Iron Man head here and a very cool star chart. See, stuff like that I just find really helps to put me in the mood for productivity. It kind of sets a studious and scientific vibe in here when I'm working. So in his book Deep Work, Cal Newport describes something called a Eudaimonia machine, and this is basically an architectural ideal, and the idea is that it's a building designed to coax the maximum amount of productivity and creativity out of the individuals who are working inside it. And it's got lots of different features, but one of the most interesting features is a kind of like library. You have to walk through this hall of achievements and inspirational items on the way in, and the idea is that by looking at these examples of fantastic work in whatever field you're in, you'll feel inspired and you'll have the sparks of creativity flying, and it'll help you to create better work yourself. And so that's what I have tried to do in my office, and that's what I think everyone should do, is fill it with things that inspire you, ideally things that are somewhat related to your line of work, but it doesn't really matter. It can just be anything that puts you in this kind of inspired, creative state of mind. So for me, that means things like the star chart globe. It means things like the Iron Man comics, because, you know, Iron Man to me is an inspiration. He's someone who, you know, got me into business and the idea of running a tech company and things like that as a kid. And Batman, of course. At the moment, I'm working on a book proposal for a fitness book, and my kind of pitch is that it's like real life Batman files, so just keeping that on the desk keeps me in that kind of mood. So it's similar to what's known as priming in psychology. So priming is, of course, when you expose yourself to a certain stimuli in order to put yourself in the correct state of mind. It's linked with memory. It basically causes the correct neurons to activate and fire and become potentiated, more likely to fire, because you're in that kind of brain state. So this is why, for instance, if you want someone to answer a personality test in a way that makes them come across as someone more cheery, you might put them in a good mood first. And similarly, you can prime yourself to be productive or you can prime yourself for a good workout. So before you go for a workout, you might watch Commando, for instance, or watch another film, watch some Dragon Ball Z that gets you psyched. Yes, the idea is that you're putting yourself in that state of mind, and if I want to work out, I watch Commando. If I want to be productive, I watch, say, the trailer for Limitless. That just puts me in this, that just primes me for work, because that's the kind of productivity and creativity and, you know, success and achievement that I want to accomplish in my day. And likewise, just filling your room with this kind of inspiring stuff can make a huge difference, and that's why I highly recommend that you fill your home office, your home Batcave, with things that you find inspiring. And that's how it kind of ties into the idea of Batman's memorabilia, his kind of achievements, the T-Rex, the coin. Of course, you can find other places that inspire you, other places that could act as your Eudaimonia machine. Examples are coffee shops. I find them to be somehow just conducive to productivity. One of my favourite places to work, though, was the British Library in London. It's just full of books and of sculptures. It has a giant statue of Newton outside, and again, that just puts me in this state of mind for productivity and creativity. Here is where I get my work done. This is where the magic happens. So at the moment I'm writing, that's actually the script for this video, which is Meta. So that's my kind of on-the-go computer, the Dell XPS 15. Really great machine for being able to be, it's a workhorse computer. It lets me edit and make computer games on the move wherever I might be. So this is a 7-inch tiny laptop. You can do a lot with 7 inches. Here I've got my powerhouse computer. This is what I use for serious video editing, also for the VR. It's not actually a computer, it's a gaming laptop. It's a couple of years old now. It's got a GTX 1060 graphics card, which is more than enough to power most things. Here I've got a set of headphones. Noise cancelling really helps with productivity. Got my phone here plugged in, which means I can easily see it, and that's cool. And I like to use various software to mirror the screen on my desktop. I use this ultra-wide monitor. Ultra-wide monitors are, of course, more immersive than smaller screens. I've read somewhere that they can increase your productivity by 30%. Not sure if that's true, but I certainly find that having that space to stretch out, spread some windows around really helps. I used to use an RGB strafe mechanical keyboard for typing, because a lot of people love those mechanical switches. I personally found that I'm actually better and quicker on a membrane keyboard, that the travel is too far on those big keyboards, but each to their own, obviously. But finding a good, comfortable keyboard is very important if you want to increase your productivity. And now, onto the training equipment, the gym area of the biolab, which is not terribly tidy. I must apologise for that, but it's because, again, I don't have enough space at all. So I've got my bench here, which I obviously use for curls, isolation curls and presses and flies, that kind of thing. You can also use it for tricep dips. But the real star of the show, and what I'm giving most prominence to, is just the dip station here. Really simple piece of equipment, very cheap, very easy to store, but it just does so much. And when it's not in use, it can easily be tucked away in the side, and I can spread out those tons of dumbbells a bit better. I've also got 2 gymnastic rings hanging from there. I did do a video on gymnastics rings. Basically, if you're thinking of buying TRX, then gymnastic rings are a much cheaper alternative, which actually do more. They're more versatile. So something you can do with this setup is RTO push-ups. RTO standing for rings turned outwards. This basically means that your palms are in a kind of supinated underhand grip as you're doing your push-ups. And what this does is it builds the straight arm strength. It builds the elbow resilience, so you don't get elbow tendonitis, etc. And it's perfect for building up to moves like the planche. The most important thing about having a home gym and equipment in your home gym is not so much the fact that you can train at home and do full workouts at home, but also just the fact that you can get lots of smaller workouts. It's called greasing the groove, where you're just practicing skills. So every time I go past this room to the toilet, I might pop in, do some dips, do some planche training, do some RTO push-ups, and what that's doing is allowing me to not only be training and moving when I'm working out, but also throughout the day. It's not enough to have a completely static lifestyle, then a couple of times a week take an hour out to do exercise. You need to be constantly moving. Here we have a hand dynamometer. Now this is a cool device that lets you test your grip strength. It's not on. Lets you test your grip strength, which is not only useful for seeing progress as you increase your grip strength, but also useful for testing your recovery after a workout. I also really like these mats on the carpet. Bought them on Argos, pretty cheap, they interlink, and they just make the space feel a bit more like a home gym rather than just, you know, a room with a carpet and some weights dumped on it. Also, of course, means you're not going to dent or damage your carpet with big, heavy weights. I've also got this piece of metal, which I use for overcoming isometrics. Just trying to crush it, which I have not accomplished yet. Oh, and a signed picture of Arnie up here, which would be awesome, except for the signature is faded. Can't even see it, so chances are it's a fake, but it's still cool. Okay, so that's the biolab. Now let's take a look at some of the home Batcaves, home offices and home gyms that you guys sent in. So first we have this awesome Batcave from Joe Freedom Lover. You can find him on Instagram, who's all about freedom of movement. He's also gotten himself some gymnastics rings and he's built a makeshift standing desk from what I can tell. He's left a stick and some push-up stands, which I also use on the floor as reminders to move. This is what I was talking about. Fantastic just for keeping you active, keeping you mobile, and avoiding yourself just becoming seized up and adapted to sitting. This is a really great idea. There's also a Japanese futon, a very minimal design, and it somehow feels very zen in this room. Oh, and he also has a whole shelf of supplements for biohacking. Another wicked one comes from Greg, whose primary inspiration seems to be Sherlock Holmes, rather than Batman. He has a really decent amount of space to work with here, and an unreal amount of desk space. I'm a massive fan of the astronomical images and the whiteboard, which creates a very studious mood. Coolest of all maybe is that he has a 3D printer that he uses to make his own sculptures, including a DNA model. I'm totally inspired to do something similar to this. Jimmy has a similarly boss space, and perhaps one of the most inventive choices here was to turn the squat rack into a standing desk. That's a brilliant use of space and it's a really good idea. Jimmy has multiple bags to hit, a dumbbell rack which is very high on my wish list, an insane amount of plates, bars and equipment. He's got loads of space and he's absolutely maxed it out with more training options than you're likely even to see in a commercial gym. Szymon Stefanski, sorry if I've said that wrong, keeps it simple here with a classy desk and a pull-up bar directly above dip bars. That's equipment for a whole bodyweight training regime in a single spot. Finally, Levente also shared his home office come gym come bedroom, making maximum use of the space. He has a sweet anime collection, some grip trainers which I approve of, ankle and wrist weights, a jump rope and some weights. All great examples of training equipment that offer a lot of potential without taking up a ton of space. Like I say, there's lots more that we could do, and if you look at things like MTV Cribs, you can get some really awesome inspiration. But obviously, if you're a bit more limited for space and for money, it's all about finding those few items that are going to create a really inspiring space and allow you to train the way you want to train. One last thing I've learned though is if you are pushed for budget and space, don't try and overdo it. Don't cram in too much. Instead, cut it back, have it more minimal, take away all the stuff you don't need, and what you're left with will be A, of a higher average value, more useful, and B, much easier to use, much easier to appreciate because it's not so cluttered. That's one of the big mistakes I've made in here, and in future I might actually get rid of my bench press or move it outside and use my home training to focus more on the bodyweight stuff. I'm going to be making a new office soon as I move out of this one, and if you guys want to be involved in that video, then please send me more of your photos and more of your videos. And thanks so much to all you guys who did contribute, who did chip in, really appreciate it, and actually all of the comments you make and all of the interactions, I really appreciate those too. So I hope you found this video useful and interesting, guys, something a bit different here. I've got lots more of the usual stuff on the way, so don't worry. I've got a video looking at Bruce Lee and how much of what he did was a myth versus reality. I've got a video on how one might train actually like Batman, so if you enjoyed this one on Batman, then that would be cool. Got one on accelerated learning and using the web to gain more knowledge. Lots more stuff. Going to be looking at intermittent fasting, which I've been experimenting with. So if that all sounds good, then please leave a like, please subscribe, share this video around. All those things help me immensely. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.